Hey guys, tonight we step into the sultry streets of San Juan, Puerto Rico, where the ocean air is heavy with salt and something far less innocent. The faint, unmistakable scent of money and fear. Picture neon lights flickering above crowded nightclubs, the rhythmic hum of reggaeton leaking out into the streets, and expensive cars gliding past as if they own the road. Somewhere in that restless energy sits José Figueroa Agosto, a man whose presence alone could hush a room. He isn't a myth, though he's already halfway to becoming one. His story is a dangerous cocktail of wealth, charm, and blood, running quietly beneath it all. And if you ever imagined that you could just stroll into his world and come out untouched, well, you probably won't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, if you're awake enough, drop your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing where you're all tuning in from. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. He's leaning back in a corner booth of a dimly lit lounge, sipping something amber and expensive. Outside, the Caribbean night carries the kind of restless energy that thrives on whispered deals and brief flashes of wealth. José Figueroa Agosto knows this world like a second skin. At 36, he's not just another trafficker. He is the Narco Playboy, the man who can glide between the glittering elite and the silent enforcers in the shadows with equal ease. Puerto Rico in 2010 is more than just a tourist destination. It's a strategic gateway for cocaine flowing north from Colombia. The numbers are staggering. American agencies estimate that nearly 30% of cocaine entering the U.S. moves through the Caribbean corridor. For Figueroa Agosto, that reality is his empire. He has cultivated a network that feels untouchable. Boat captains, pilots, corrupt customs officials, and the kind of men who will drive cross-island at 3 a.m. without asking questions. A mainstream historical fact that colors this world: Puerto Rico's role as a U.S. territory gives traffickers a golden loophole. Once their product lands here, it can move freely onto the mainland without the customs checks international cargo faces. That loophole alone helps explain why men like Figueroa Agosto thrive. He knows geography is on his side, and he plays it like a violin. At that booth, his designer watch catching the dim light, he glances toward the door as another group enters. He's learned to scan rooms silently, instinctively. Years of being hunted do that. You wouldn't guess it by his confident posture, but paranoia is an old friend. He has been on the run before, and he knows it's only a matter of time before the next storm approaches. Yet, tonight, the music is soft, the champagne cold, and the women drawn to him like moths to a flame. There is always a balance to maintain, the image and the reality. He needs to look untouchable, the man who always has a plan, but inside he remembers the prison walls that once closed around him. He escaped those walls with a cunning few thought possible, but the memory still burns. Many people still think that his legend is built more on luck than skill, that the only reason he's sitting free right now is because of a broken justice system. So, what do you think? Can someone really escape a murder conviction, slip away into another country and rebuild an empire without a touch of genius? The night deepens, and a trusted associate slides into the booth beside him. The man's eyes dart nervously around the lounge before leaning in close. There's a shipment due in from Colombia, a routine run on paper. But the associate's voice trembles ever so slightly. There's word that DEA surveillance has intensified. Figueroa Agosto barely reacts outwardly. He's learned that showing fear is as good as signing your own death warrant. He smiles instead, a slow, calculated curve of his lips, and tells the associate to double-check everything: the boat's route, the captain's loyalty, the officials at the docks. He can't afford mistakes. He can't afford betrayal. He knows too well how fragile even the biggest empire can be. His phone buzzes with a text, and the screen lights up with the name of a woman, a constant presence in his complicated web of relationships. He hesitates for just a second before slipping the phone back into his pocket. Business first, always. But that doesn't mean the personal life won't eventually bleed into the professional. It always does. Outside, a pair of SUVs roll past slowly, tinted windows hiding the faces inside. It could be nothing, or it could be a reminder that in this world, someone is always watching. Figueroa Agosto finishes his drink and rises from the booth with the quiet grace of a man who understands that survival depends on movement, on never becoming too comfortable. As he steps out into the humid San Juan night, the streets alive with noise and neon, he feels the familiar rush of adrenaline. He knows that each night like this could be his last, but he isn't about to show it. He straightens his cufflinks, flashes that movie star smile, and disappears into the crowd like smoke. And somewhere, deep down, he can't shake the thought that the people hunting him are already closer than he imagines. If you ever wanted to know how a legend begins, you don't start at the glittering nightclubs or the million-dollar hideouts. You start in Bayamon, Puerto Rico, a city that, back in the 1980s, was equal parts working-class pride and quiet despair. Picture narrow streets slick from an afternoon rain, the smell of frying plantains mixing with exhaust fumes, and kids playing basketball on cracked pavement under rusting hoops. One of those kids is a wiry, sharp-eyed boy named José Figueroa Agosto. He doesn't come from privilege. His father works long hours at a job that barely keeps food on the table. His mother tries to hold the household together, but in a neighborhood like this, you can't compete with the streets. José is clever, almost disarmingly so. The kind of kid who can read a person's intentions before they open their mouth. He's charming when it serves him, cold when it doesn't. Even as a teenager, he already carries himself like someone who knows the rules don't apply. A mainstream historical fact frames his world. By the late 1980s, Puerto Rico had become a key transshipment point for cocaine, moving from South America into the U.S. mainland. Geography made it inevitable. Once drugs reached the island, they could be flown or shipped into U.S. states without the heavy customs scrutiny international cargo faced. For kids like José, it meant one thing: the drug trade was everywhere. He starts small. A few stolen car parts, some weed sold on the corner, favors for older guys who see his potential. It's a dangerous apprenticeship, but José is learning quickly. He learns how to earn respect without throwing the first punch, how to keep his mouth shut when it matters, and most importantly, how to stay invisible to anyone who can put him in a cell. Many people still think that he was simply a victim of circumstance, that poverty and location sealed his fate. So, what do you think? Was it destiny, or did he make deliberate choices every step of the way? But choices pile up, and soon they're heavier than he can carry. At 19, José's name is tied to a murder. The details are murky. Some say it was a drug deal gone wrong. Others whisper it was a calculated hit to send a message. Either way, he's convicted. And suddenly, those cracked basketball courts feel very far away. Prison is the ultimate wake-up call, or at least it's supposed to be. Inside, Jose sees how the system really works. He studies the guards, the schedules, the escape routes that most inmates can only dream about. He makes friends where it counts and favors where it matters. And then, in a move that even seasoned criminals shake their heads at, he does the impossible. He escapes. The story of that breakout becomes a part of his myth. Some insist he bribed his way out, that the guards simply looked the other way. Others believe it was meticulously planned down to the second. Either way, one morning the prison cell is empty, and José Figueroa Agosto is gone. Many people still think that his escape was just dumb luck, but others argue it showed the tactical mind that would later build an empire. So, what do you think? Could a 19-year-old really outsmart the entire correctional system? His sudden freedom changes everything. He's no longer just another kid from Bayamon with a criminal record. He's a ghost, a cautionary tale whispered by guards and gangsters alike. And ghosts, as we all know, are hard to catch. The escape changes everything. One day, he's just another inmate counting the cracks in the cell walls. And the next, he's the most talked about man in Puerto Rico's underworld. News of José Figueroa. Agosto's disappearance spreads faster than the humid Caribbean breeze. Newspapers run breathless headlines. TV reporters post up outside the prison, talking into cameras with faces full of disbelief. And on the streets, the legend grows. If he can slip out of a maximum security facility, what can he do? The truth of how he escapes is still a puzzle. Was it bribery? A carefully hidden hacksaw and a daring climb? A guard looking the other way for the right price? Many people still think he simply got lucky, that the prison system was so riddled with flaws he could walk out the front gate. But those who knew him closely insist it was calculated down to the smallest detail. He watched guard rotations for months. He memorized schedules. He waited for the perfect gap. Whatever the method, one thing is clear. Jose doesn't waste a second. He knows Puerto Rico will be swarming with police, so he vanishes, disappears. He's a ghost now, slipping quietly off the island and heading where the law will have a harder time finding him. The Dominican Republic. Santo Domingo, the Dominican capital, is the kind of city that welcomes people who know how to stay under the radar. Bustling streets, chaotic traffic, crowded markets. It's easy to blend in. And Jose does exactly that. He uses fake names and forged documents, moving from one safe house to another. He spends months rebuilding himself from the ground up, using the money he's stashed away and connections he made while behind bars. But a man like Jose isn't built to hide forever. He's ambitious, and ambition doesn't like quiet. Slowly, carefully, he begins to build something bigger than the small-time hustles of his teenage years. He links up with traffickers in Colombia, men who control the supply chain of cocaine at its source. He connects with smugglers who know the hidden routes through the Caribbean. He cultivates relationships with people in positions of power, customs officials, police officers, even politicians willing to look the other way. And then there's the violence. Jose understands it's part of the business, but he isn't reckless. He doesn't gun down rivals in the streets for sport. He's strategic. Competitors who refuse to cooperate either vanish quietly or are taken out in ways that send a message. It's not just about eliminating threats. It's about creating a climate of fear so strong that few even think about challenging him. One mainstream historical fact that gives him an advantage. By the early 2000s, cocaine production in Colombia is at its peak, and the demand in the U.S. is enormous. Traffickers who can move product through Caribbean routes stand to make fortunes, and José positions himself perfectly. His network operates like a finely tuned machine, moving tons of cocaine through Puerto Rico and onward to mainland U.S. cities. The profits are staggering. In Santo Domingo, José starts to live like the kind of man he's becoming. Luxury cars, designer suits, mansions with ocean views. He throws parties that make the front page of Dominican tabloids, rubbing shoulders with celebrities and politicians. His nickname, El Don de la Noche, the dawn of the night, sticks. Women are drawn to him, men want to be him, and the legend grows even larger. But success brings attention. For now, José is careful. He changes homes often, never stays in one place too long. He keeps his circle small, trusting only a handful of people. Still, the risk is there. He knows the DEA hasn't forgotten him. Neither have the Puerto Rican authorities who were humiliated by his escape. Somewhere, someone is always watching. He's sitting one night in a villa outside Santo Domingo, sipping a glass of rum on a balcony overlooking the city lights. The air is warm, thick with the sound of distant music and the buzz of motorbikes weaving through traffic below. He thinks about Bayamon, about the cracked courts and narrow streets of his childhood, how far he's come, how high he's climbed. But he also knows that everything he's built could crumble in an instant. Many people still think that once you've escaped once, you feel invincible. José doesn't. He knows that every day on the outside is a gift, and he intends to use it to cement his empire. The network doesn't build itself. José Figueroa Agosto wakes each day in Santo Domingo with the same mission: strengthen the links that hold his empire together and make it so complex, so deeply embedded, that no one can easily dismantle it. It's not just about drugs anymore. It's about infrastructure. Boats, warehouses, front companies, cash laundries, and a cadre of loyal soldiers who owe their lives to him. He's careful, almost obsessively so. He knows every man in his organization by name, studies their personalities, understands their weaknesses. If one of them has a gambling problem, José keeps him flush with enough money to stay loyal. If another is fiercely ambitious, José gives him just enough responsibility to feel important, but never so much that he could rise against him. This isn't just leadership, it's control. To understand why his operation thrives, you need to consider a mainstream historical fact. Corruption in the Caribbean during the early 2000s is rampant. Law enforcement salaries are low, and the drug trade's money is intoxicating. Customs officials can be bought, police officers persuaded, and even politicians persuaded to turn a blind eye. José exploits this reality with surgical precision, but it's not all cash and intimidation. José builds loyalty by taking care of his people. He pays for funerals, bails out family members, and shows up at weddings. He knows appearances matter. Many people still think that criminal empires are sustained only by fear, but José understands something deeper. True power comes from mixing fear with dependence. So, what do you think? Would you rather be ruled by terror alone, or by a man who can make your life better? And worse, his smuggling routes grow more sophisticated by the month. Cocaine moves in speedboats that dart between Caribbean islands at night, their engines roaring across black water. Larger shipments ride hidden compartments in cargo containers bound for U.S. ports. José even experiments with small aircraft that land on clandestine airstrips. He's diversifying, ensuring that if one route gets compromised, two others stay running. the money piles up faster than he can count it. He needs laundries now, and lots of them. So he invests in legitimate-looking businesses, car dealerships, construction companies, nightclubs. Cash flows in and out, masking the illegal profits. From the outside, it looks like a legitimate Caribbean success story. Inside, it's a fortress of crime. In those years, José becomes a master of blending into both the high society of Santo Domingo and the criminal underworld that props it up. He's spotted at charity galas, shaking hands with politicians, wearing suits so tailored they could be mistaken for armor. But he's also comfortable in the shadows, having late-night meetings in anonymous safe houses. His rise doesn't go unnoticed. Rivals emerge, and José deals with them quietly. One trafficker in particular tries to undercut his prices, and a week later, he's found floating in a river. Another refuses to pay for protection, and his warehouse mysteriously burns down. The message is clear. Cooperation is profitable. Defiance is fatal. But the more successful he becomes, the more invisible he tries to be. He uses fake passports and identities, traveling between the Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, and other Caribbean islands. He rotates his phone numbers regularly and avoids digital trails. José's paranoia isn't unfounded. He knows there are task forces forming just to catch him. One evening, as he stands in the courtyard of a luxurious villa, the scent of tropical flowers heavy in the air, José reflects on how far he's come. He's not the boy from Bayamon anymore. He's a king in all but name, ruling a vast, shadowy domain. But even kings can fall. Many people still think that criminal empires this big eventually collapse under their own weight, that greed makes men careless. José vows he won't be that man. He tightens the screws, keeps the machine running smoothly, and makes sure that for now, he's the one pulling every string. The Dominican Republic becomes more than just a refuge. It becomes the throne from which José Figueroa Agosto rules. Santo Domingo's energy suits him, chaotic enough to hide in, vibrant enough to enjoy. He invests in sprawling villas with high walls and private security, each one stocked with amenities most people only see in magazines. From these fortified homes, he directs a network that stretches across the Caribbean like an invisible web. But José is smart enough to know he can't stay rooted in one place. The authorities are relentless, and the United States Drug Enforcement Administration, DEA, is patient. He frequently moves between safe houses, each location chosen for strategic reasons. One might be close to a port he controls, another hidden in a quiet residential neighborhood where no one would suspect a kingpin lives next door. What gives him an edge isn't just his money or connections, it's his adaptability. He understands the Dominican Republic's geography in a way few others do. He knows which coastal villages are easy to access by boat, which airports have the loosest oversight, and which rural roads allow for discreet transport of contraband. A mainstream historical fact that adds context. By the early 2000s, the Dominican Republic had become a major hub for cocaine trafficking due to its location between South America and the United States. Its porous borders and overworked law enforcement made it a smuggler's paradise. José capitalizes on that reality. His shipments flow steadily from Colombia, pass through Dominican ports, and move into Puerto Rico or directly to U.S. shores. He's not the only trafficker operating in this corridor, but he's one of the most effective. He treats the operation like a corporation, and that professional touch sets him apart. Many people still think that criminal empires operate on chaos, that leaders like José simply react to whatever opportunity or threat arises. But that isn't his style. Every move he makes is deliberate. Every person he promotes is tested for loyalty. He even keeps meticulous records, though he hides them in ways that make investigators tear their hair out when they try to find them. So, what do you think? Is that careful planning what allows him to stay ahead? Or is it just a matter of time before one mistake brings it all crashing down? José's presence in the Dominican Republic doesn't go unnoticed by its elite. He's charming, impeccably dressed, and spends money like water. He begins attending high society parties where his easy charisma and mysterious aura make him a sought-after guest. Some politicians and businessmen look the other way because they enjoy his company or his cash. Others fear him, quietly acknowledging the power he wields. Still, he's cautious. He never stays too long at these parties, and he never lets alcohol cloud his judgment. To him, appearances are as important as strategy. When tabloids photograph him leaving a luxury nightclub, he knows it fuels his mystique. But behind closed doors, he's constantly thinking, analyzing, and tightening his network. José also becomes more selective about who he trusts. His inner circle shrinks as his empire grows, a paradox that makes perfect sense to him. The fewer people who know his movements, the safer he feels. He uses multiple phones, each one for a specific purpose, and he changes them frequently. If a phone is ever compromised, he discards it without hesitation. But even as he consolidates his power, there's a part of him that enjoys the role of the Caribbean playboy. The fast cars, the yachts, the lavish parties. They're not just indulgences, they're tools. They make him appear untouchable, a man living so openly and extravagantly that few would guess he's also operating one of the region's most complex smuggling networks. Late one night, as he walks through the grounds of a villa perched high above the city, the sounds of Santo Domingo faint in the distance. José reflects on his journey. He's escaped prison, rebuilt his life, and now commands an empire. But he knows better than to think it will last forever. He's seen what happens to men who get comfortable, and yet, the thought of losing it all only fuels him. He's determined to keep the machine running, to stay one step ahead of everyone. Rivals, law enforcement, even the people closest to him. Because in this world, survival isn't just about strength. It's about never letting anyone see where you're vulnerable. By the time José Figueroa Agosto settles deeper into his life in the Dominican Republic, he is no longer just a fugitive trying to avoid capture. He is a man who has mastered the art of disguise, not just with fake passports or changing phone numbers, but with the way he shapes perception itself. José doesn't simply exist in Santo Domingo. He blends seamlessly into the upper crust of society, attending lavish galas and charity events where his presence is met with nods and handshakes rather than suspicion. He understands the importance of image. At these events, José isn't just another wealthy man. He is the charismatic figure who can hold a conversation about art, politics, or sports with equal ease. His designer suits fit like armor, tailored down to the last millimeter. He makes donations to charitable causes, often under aliases, ensuring that his name is linked to good deeds in whispers rather than crimes in headlines. But while the spotlight is useful, José knows he must remain careful. High society can protect him, but it can also expose him. So he adopts a strategy. Spend enough to stay visible, but not enough to appear reckless. The luxury cars, the yachts, the mansions, they all serve a dual purpose. They feed his legend as the Narco Playboy, but they also mask his real work. When people are dazzled by the surface, They rarely dig deeper. A mainstream historical fact reinforces his approach. During the early 2000s, the Dominican Republic was battling a wave of drug-related violence, with traffickers competing for routes into the U.S. Many of these traffickers drew attention through brutality and bloodshed, making themselves easy targets for law enforcement. José takes note. He chooses subtlety. Violence, when necessary, is quiet and precise. Still, power always invites danger. Rivals watch José's growing influence with envy. Some attempt to infiltrate his network, offering bribes to his associates. Others try to undercut his prices or poach his smuggling routes. But José is meticulous. He holds regular meetings with his lieutenants, reminding them of the stakes and making it clear that betrayal will be met with swift consequences. Many people still think that criminal empires survive purely on intimidation. José proves otherwise. He weaves loyalty into his organization by looking after his people, paying for medical bills, helping families in need, and celebrating personal milestones. This mix of fear and care makes his network unusually resilient. So, what do you think? Would loyalty bought through kindness last longer than loyalty bought through fear alone? Even so, cracks occasionally appear. José notices when an associate grows too nervous or too greedy, and he addresses it immediately. One man who had been with him for years suddenly starts spending beyond his means, a classic sign that he may be skimming profits. José doesn't lash out in rage. Instead, he quietly removes the man from any sensitive operations. Weeks later, the associate vanishes, never to be seen again. The lesson is clear. Disloyalty has no place here. By this point, José's operations run like a multinational corporation. He has managers overseeing different territories, accountants managing the laundering operations, and a security team tasked with both protection and counterintelligence. He rotates shipping routes regularly, never relying too heavily on a single method. Cocaine moves on speedboats, fishing vessels, cargo ships, and even commercial airlines through carefully bribed airport personnel. But success carries a cost. As the money and influence grow, so does the scrutiny. The DEA is aware of him, even if they can't pin him down yet. Puerto Rican authorities are still embarrassed by his escape years ago and are determined to see him brought back. And in Santo Domingo, whispers about his true identity begin to circulate. José can sense the shift. He's always been careful, but now he becomes even more paranoid. He switches vehicles multiple times a day, avoids routines, and never sleeps in the same place twice for long. Even the luxurious mansions he owns feel less like homes and more like strategic assets. One evening, as he sits on the balcony of a secluded estate overlooking the Caribbean Sea, the humid air clinging to his skin, José allows himself a rare moment of reflection. The water stretches endlessly into the horizon, black and silver under the moonlight. He thinks about how far he's come from the cracked courts of Bayamon, the boy who once hustled for scraps, and yet he knows this life is fragile. He can't afford to get comfortable. Every rival, every cop, every agent who dreams of making a name for themselves, he's the trophy they're hunting. José's empire might look untouchable from the outside, but he knows better than anyone how quickly it could all unravel. Still, as he takes a slow sip of rum and listens to the distant hum of the waves, he makes a silent promise to himself. He won't be the next cautionary tale. José Figueroa Agosto doesn't become complacent. By now, his operation is vast, but he knows growth invites enemies. In the Dominican Republic, whispers travel fast, and his rivals are always waiting for any sign of weakness. Some are local traffickers eager to claim a larger share of the Caribbean corridor. Others are international players who see the Dominican Republic as a stepping stone into U.S. markets. José treats each threat like a chess piece, carefully predicting its next move before striking. Consolidating power means making hard choices. When competitors refuse to cooperate, José gives them two options: join his network or be erased from it. Most take the first option. A few do not, and their fates serve as silent warnings. But José doesn't relish bloodshed. He prefers the boardroom to the battlefield, and he understands that violence attracts the kind of headlines that get law enforcement knocking. A mainstream historical fact helps frame this moment. During the early 2000s, Dominican authorities were already struggling to stem a surge in drug-related homicides. Rival traffickers would openly gun each other down in public, sometimes in broad daylight. José refuses to play that game. He focuses on efficiency, making sure any removal of rivals is discreet, almost surgical. He begins to buy out competitors instead of killing them. He offers them better terms, larger profit shares, or cushier roles in his expanding network. Many people still think that his ability to persuade enemies into allies was his greatest strength, more powerful than any weapon. So, what do you think? Would you rather have a feared enemy or a grudgingly loyal partner? José also understands the power of information. He sets up an intelligence wing within his organization, a small but highly trusted group tasked with monitoring the movements of rivals, law enforcement, and even his own people. They tap phones, bribe informants, and maintain a constant flow of updates. Nothing escapes his notice for long. As his control tightens, his empire begins to resemble a shadow government. He has men stationed at ports, airports, and border checkpoints. Customs officials who once resisted his bribes now take his calls at any hour. Police officers alert him to raids before they happen. Even politicians quietly accept his donations in exchange for favors. But with power comes temptation. Some of José's lieutenants begin to enjoy their positions a little too much. They flaunt their wealth, show off their connections, and spend carelessly. José notices and grows concerned. He knows the fastest way to attract unwanted attention is through reckless behavior. So he calls a private meeting in one of his Santo Domingo villas. The atmosphere in the room is tense. He doesn't yell. He doesn't have to. He calmly explains that anyone who jeopardizes the organization will be dealt with immediately. Then, as if to underline the point, he dismisses one lieutenant whose mistakes had already cost them a shipment. The man doesn't return. The others get the message, yet José is no dictator. He rewards those who follow his instructions with more responsibility, more money, and more trust. He believes loyalty must be nurtured, not forced. That balance, fear and reward, punishment and protection, is what keeps the machine running. Late one night, as he reviews shipment schedules in a candlelit study, José pauses to think about the bigger picture. His network spans multiple countries. The profits are staggering. He has the respect, or fear, of nearly everyone in the Caribbean underworld. But he knows that the DEA, Puerto Rican police, and Dominican authorities are all circling. He tells himself that as long as he stays disciplined, he can outlast them. Many people still think that every criminal empire eventually collapses because of ego, because its leader becomes convinced he's invincible. José swears he will never fall into that trap, and yet, as he looks out through the open windows at the quiet night beyond his villa's walls, there's a subtle unease in the pit of his stomach. He can feel the tension building. The The question isn't whether someone will try to take him down. It's when. The silent flow of cocaine through José Figueroa Agosto's network becomes almost artful in its precision. Every route, every shipment, every contact is carefully managed. Cocaine moves from Colombia to the Dominican Republic, then through Puerto Rico, and onward to the mainland United States. Each leg of the journey is timed and choreographed, like an elaborate dance that only he can conduct. Speedboats carrying sealed bundles race through Caribbean waters under cover of darkness. Fishermen who appear to be hauling nets are actually ferrying bricks of cocaine. Cargo containers with hidden compartments sail across the ocean, their contents declared as mundane products: bananas, electronics, clothing. José even experiments with commercial air routes, relying on bribed airport employees to push shipments through undetected. A mainstream historical fact provides context. By the early 2000s, cocaine smuggling through Caribbean routes was a significant challenge for law enforcement. The DEA and U.S. Coast Guard publicly acknowledged that traffickers used sophisticated methods and that interdiction efforts could only stop a fraction of shipments. José knows this and leverages it. He never moves all his product through one channel. Diversification is the key. If a boat is seized, another will succeed. If an airport route is compromised, a container ship arrives safely. José understands redundancy like a corporate CEO, ensuring that no single failure can cripple the operation. Many people still think that drug kingpins like José rely on brute force and intimidation alone, but his genius lies in the details. He tracks inventory meticulously, keeps tight schedules, and personally reviews key transactions. So, what do you think? Could an empire of this size function if its leader didn't micromanage? But while his shipments glide through the Caribbean like ghosts, José's wealth begins to create its own challenges. Mountains of cash pour in, and laundering it becomes a full-time operation. He invests in front companies, car dealerships, nightclubs, construction firms, and import-export businesses. He even bankrolls real estate developments, buying properties under a web of aliases. These businesses give the illusion of legitimate success, but they also feed his legend. José is seen cruising the streets of Santo Domingo in sleek sports cars, dining at the most exclusive restaurants, and hosting parties that rival celebrity events. The Narco Playboy persona solidifies. Yet José knows appearances can be a double-edged sword. While his lifestyle attracts admiration, it also risks drawing too much attention. Law enforcement agencies are starting to whisper his name, even if they can't yet connect it to the man behind the masks. He counters this by rotating his identities. One week, he's using a Dominican passport under the name Angel Rosario. The next, he's Miguel Angel Vasquez, a supposed entrepreneur. Inside his network, paranoia grows. Every successful shipment only increases the stakes. Associates worry about raids and arrests. Some fear rival cartels might target them. José addresses these fears directly. He gathers his lieutenants and explains that caution is their greatest weapon. No unnecessary risks. No flashy displays of wealth that might tip off investigators. And yet, he himself cannot fully resist the lure of luxury. He enjoys the finer things, and those who know him see the contradiction. The careful, calculating mastermind who also loves the adrenaline rush of living large. One humid night, as he steps off a yacht anchored just off the Dominican coast, José pauses to look at the stars. The Caribbean sky is vast and quiet, but he feels the weight of the world pressing in. He's made it this far because he's avoided becoming a target. But the bigger his empire grows, the harder that becomes. Many people still think that traffickers like Jose are doomed the moment they allow their names to become symbols. And whether he admits it or not, Jose's name is now more than a name. It's a brand. That reality makes him both powerful and vulnerable. As he slips into a waiting SUV and drives away from the marina, Jose knows that while his roots are silent and invisible, the man behind them is becoming harder to hide. José Figueroa Agosto may be a master at building empires, but he's also a man of flesh and blood. And like many powerful men, he's drawn to the thrill of romance. In Santo Domingo, the Narco Playboy persona is more than a myth. It's a magnet. Women are captivated by his charm, his wealth, and the aura of danger that seems to cling to him like a second skin. He cultivates an image of the desirable bachelor, appearing at nightclubs and galas with beautiful women on his arm. Yet beneath the glossy veneer, his relationships are complicated. Jose juggles multiple partners, some serious, others fleeting. And while these connections bring pleasure, they also create vulnerabilities. One of the women closest to him is Sobeida Felix Morel, a striking figure who moves comfortably in high society circles. With Sobeida, Jose finds not just romance, but someone he can confide in, at least to a degree. She's intelligent, ambitious, and capable of managing parts of his life that he prefers to keep at arm's length. But he knows the dangers of trust. He's seen enough betrayals in his career to understand that love can be a double-edged sword. A mainstream historical fact illustrates the point. In the history of organized crime, romantic partners have often been the weak link that leads to a criminal's downfall. Many people still think Jose would have been wise to keep his heart locked away, that entanglements only made him more vulnerable. So, what do you think? Can someone in his position truly balance love and survival? His romantic life isn't just about Sobeida. There are other women, some drawn to his power, others to the lavish lifestyle he provides. But Jose's charm can only mask the reality for so long. Jealousies flare, secrets leak, and whispers of his true identity start to circulate among people he barely knows. He begins to notice little things. A girlfriend asking questions about his business, another making offhand comments about the amount of cash he keeps around. Each moment feels like a potential crack in his carefully constructed facade. Jose reacts by tightening control. He sets boundaries, keeps his partners separated, and avoids sharing too much personal information. But even as he grows more cautious, the vulnerabilities multiply. Women in his orbit have access to details others do not. Safe house locations, phone numbers, the names of trusted associates. If any of them talk, even accidentally, it could be disastrous. One night, at a luxury penthouse overlooking the city, Jose throws a private party. The room is filled with laughter, clinking glasses, and the scent of expensive perfume. Sobeida is there, radiant in a black dress, but Jose's mind isn't entirely on the celebration. He catches snippets of conversation, notices when someone slips away to make a phone call. This is the paradox of his life. The more he tries to enjoy it, the more he feels the walls closing in. He knows that every person he allows into his inner circle is both an asset and a liability. Many people still think that Jose's romantic entanglements would eventually be his undoing, that the risks far outweighed the rewards. And as he stands by the balcony that night, looking down at the lights of Santo Domingo, he wonders if they're right. He takes a slow breath, resolves to stay vigilant, and retreats back inside to the world he's built. But deep down, he can't shake the feeling that the cracks are beginning to form. The DEA has been watching José Figueroa Agosto for years, but by now, their interest has sharpened into obsession. They know the Narco Playboy isn't just a Dominican rumor. He's a key player, moving staggering amounts of cocaine into the United States. Each successful shipment that slips past their net is a bitter reminder of how effective his operation has become. In Puerto Rico, law enforcement still feels the sting of his infamous prison escape. Bringing him back into custody would be more than a victory. It would be redemption. Agents in San Juan begin pooling intelligence with their counterparts in Santo Domingo and Miami. Every scrap of information matters. A new alias, a suspicious wire transfer, the make and model of the latest sports car he's driving. José senses the growing scrutiny, though no one has yet managed to pin him down. He knows there are investigations, knows his name circulates in DEA briefings, but his confidence remains high. His network of informants within law enforcement tips him off when raids are planned, allowing him to vanish before anyone knocks at his door. A mainstream historical fact adds weight to the hunt. By 2005, U.S. agencies had significantly increased their funding for Caribbean counter-narcotics operations, deploying more agents and technology than ever before. The days of slipping unnoticed through porous borders were ending. José's ability to stay ahead isn't magic, it's meticulous planning. He changes safe houses frequently, never visiting the same one too often. His cars are swapped out weekly, his phone's discarded after a handful of calls. He even rotates the restaurants and nightclubs he attends, ensuring no routine ever develops. Many people still think that his luck couldn't last forever, that the DEA's net was tightening whether he realized it or not. So, what do you think? Could anyone maintain this level of vigilance indefinitely? Or is it only a matter of time before a single misstep gives everything away? The increased pressure begins to show in subtle ways. José's lieutenants notice that he's quieter now, more watchful. He cuts back on appearances at large public events, preferring smaller, more controlled gatherings. Even in these intimate settings, his eyes constantly scan the room. One night, after a long meeting with his top enforcers, José steps out onto a villa balcony overlooking the darkened city. The warm Caribbean air carries distant music from the streets below, but he can't relax. He's thinking about the boats, the ports, the shipments due to arrive in the coming weeks. Any one of them could be compromised. He makes a decision that surprises even his closest associates. He orders a temporary slowdown of operations. Fewer shipments, fewer movements, less noise. It's a precaution meant to ease the mounting heat. But in the drug trade, slowing down can be just as dangerous as pushing forward. Rivals notice when product isn't moving. Partners grow restless. Meanwhile, DEA agents and Puerto Rican authorities continue to gather intelligence. They track the women linked to him, the cars, the businesses. They follow up on every anonymous tip, every rumor. Some leads go nowhere. Others confirm that José is more active and influential than they'd imagined. In Santo Domingo, José grows more cautious, but also more frustrated. He's worked too hard to let fear dictate his every move. He tells himself that the DEA is still far from catching him, that their evidence is flimsy. Yet deep down, he knows the margin for error is shrinking. Many people still think that his paranoia was justified, that by this point, the DEA had already begun to close in. And as José stares out into the night, his phone vibrating with another encrypted message, he wonders how long he can keep playing this game. Because one mistake, just one, could mean the end. Corruption becomes José Figueroa Agosto's most valuable currency. By now, his empire's survival depends as much on keeping officials happy as it does on moving product. He has cultivated a network of influence that reaches deep into law enforcement, customs, and even the judiciary. It's a dangerous game, but José knows exactly how to play it. In the Dominican Republic, a well-timed donation can solve most problems. A police officer who might otherwise arrest a courier receives a quiet envelope of cash. A customs inspector who notices a suspicious cargo container suddenly remembers he has somewhere else to be. Judges who could sign off on search warrants conveniently delay paperwork until José's people are long gone. This isn't unique to José's operation. A mainstream historical fact puts it into context. During the mid-2000s, corruption in Caribbean law enforcement was an open secret, with major international watchdogs reporting that drug traffickers routinely bought protection at every level. For someone with José's resources, the system is practically designed for exploitation. Many people still think that corruption alone is what kept him free for so long. But José knows it's more complicated than that. Bribes buy time, not loyalty. Every official he pays off could one day flip if the right pressure is applied. So he creates layers of insulation. Officials never deal with him directly. Intermediaries handle the dirty work. And if an official proves unreliable, he's quickly replaced. One late afternoon, José sits in the back of an SUV, windows tinted so dark that even the tropical sun can't penetrate. He's en route to a quiet meeting with a well-placed government contact. The conversation is brief and discreet. A few coded phrases exchanged over coffee at a secluded cafe. Within days, a customs checkpoint that had been causing headaches for his couriers mysteriously becomes much easier to pass. But corruption has its risks. Paying off the wrong person can attract attention, and José is keenly aware that each transaction leaves a potential trail. He instructs his lieutenants to rotate contacts regularly, never leaning on the same official too often. He even spreads the bribes around different agencies, ensuring that no single group of people knows the full scope of his operations. And yet, the more influence he buys, the more complicated things become. One day, a judge who has quietly helped him for years demands a larger payout than usual. Another time, a police official hints at wanting a favor beyond money, a favor that could expose the network if it goes wrong. José grows frustrated with the constant balancing act. Many people still think that his reliance on corrupt officials would inevitably backfire, that one weak link would bring the whole system crashing down. So, what do you think? Can you build a fortress on foundations this unstable? As José navigates these challenges, he becomes more ruthless. Associates who compromise the network's integrity are removed quickly and quietly. Trusted intermediaries are reminded that betrayal carries a heavy cost. The message is clear: the machine must keep running, and anyone who threatens it will be crushed. One humid evening, as José watches the lights of Santo Domingo from a villa perched high in the hills, he reflects on the contradictions of his life. He has built a network so vast it touches nearly every aspect of the Caribbean underworld. Yet he knows it could all unravel in an instant, not because of an enemy's bullet, but because someone he trusted decided to talk. Still, as long as the money flows and the shipments move, José believes he can manage the risks. For now, corruption remains his shield and his sword. Luxury can be intoxicating, and José Figueroa Agosto knows it better than anyone. By now, his empire's profits are so vast that he could live quietly for the rest of his life. But José doesn't live quietly. He enjoys the world seeing him as the Narco Playboy, the man with the exotic cars, the lavish mansions, and the kind of lifestyle that makes people whisper when he enters a room. In Santo Domingo, He's often seen at upscale restaurants and exclusive clubs, always immaculately dressed. His suits are hand-tailored, his watches gleam with diamonds, and his cars, sleek Ferraris, Lamborghinis, and Bentleys, announce his arrival long before he steps out. These indulgences feed his mystique. Women are drawn to him, men envy him, and rivals grudgingly respect the power he represents. But luxury has a price beyond the money spent. The DEA, Puerto Rican law enforcement, and Dominican authorities are all watching, and his lifestyle is becoming harder to ignore. A mainstream historical fact underscores this risk. Many drug kingpins throughout history have been caught not by the drugs they move, but by the lavish spending that eventually draws scrutiny. José understands this, but he doesn't fully curtail his habits. He convinces himself that the image is a form of protection, that if he appears untouchable, fewer people will dare to move against him. Many people still think this was a fatal miscalculation, that his public displays of wealth made him an obvious target. So what do you think? Would living more modestly have saved him? Or was it already too late? One night, he hosts a party at one of his villas, a sprawling estate with marble floors, infinity pools, and panoramic views of the Caribbean Sea. Guests sip champagne, dance to live music, and marvel at the opulence. José moves effortlessly among them, offering easy smiles and warm greetings. But beneath the polished exterior, his mind is constantly working. He's watching who talks to whom, who leaves early, who lingers a little too long by the security staff. The very image he projects, the powerful, untouchable figure, also isolates him. Few people are honest around him. They tell him what they think he wants to hear. He notices how his closest associates now hesitate before delivering bad news, a subtle shift that makes him uneasy. To compensate, José increases his own vigilance. He doubles the number of safe houses he can retreat to at a moment's notice. He installs more sophisticated surveillance in his properties and vehicles, wanting to see anyone who approaches before they see him. He even begins to distance himself from some social gatherings, attending only those that can benefit his network. Yet the Narco Playboy persona is hard to shake. Paparazzi and tabloid photographers occasionally catch him stepping out of nightclubs or walking into expensive boutiques. These images circulate quickly, adding to the growing legend. They also make it clear to law enforcement that they're not dealing with a ghost. They're dealing with a man who loves the spotlight. As José drives away from a late-night dinner one evening, his sleek black Lamborghini purring beneath him, he reflects on the contradiction of his life. He thrives on the power and recognition his wealth brings, but he knows it's also painting a target on his back. He tells himself he can manage it, that the walls of security he's built are strong enough to withstand any assault. But in the quiet moments, when the music fades and the party guests go home, a darker thought lingers. Perhaps the walls aren't as strong as they seem. The older José Figueroa Agosto gets, the more he understands that survival in his world depends on being able to vanish at a moment's notice. He's a master of identities now, switching between them with the ease of someone changing shirts. In one life, he's Angel Rosario, a well-connected entrepreneur. In another, he's Miguel Angel Vasquez, a reclusive real estate investor. Each alias comes with its own backstory, documents, and bank accounts, making it nearly impossible for authorities to trace his movements. He travels with fake passports so authentic that even seasoned customs officers wouldn't spot a flaw. His phones are disposable, used for a handful of calls before being destroyed. Even the vehicles he drives are swapped constantly. No one outside his inner circle ever knows what car he'll be in on any given day. A mainstream historical fact adds context. International criminal networks have long relied on forged travel documents and aliases to stay ahead of law enforcement. But by the mid-2000s, advances in biometric security were starting to close those loopholes. Jose knows that the walls are closing in. Many people still think that his paranoia was extreme, but in reality, it was necessary. Every time he steps into public, he risks being recognized by someone with a camera phone or a long memory. So, what do you think? Is living like a phantom the price of power? Or is it the slow erosion of freedom itself? The paranoia also extends to his own people. He rotates his lieutenant's responsibilities frequently, making sure no single person knows the full scope of his operations. Meetings are kept short and usually take place in different locations, a penthouse one week, a private yacht the next. Jose doesn't trust anyone completely, not even those who've proven loyal for years, but the system isn't foolproof. One evening, while reviewing shipment schedules at a safe house tucked into the hills outside Santo Domingo, Jose receives troubling news. A courier has been arrested, and the authorities have confiscated several phones. He immediately orders every number in use to be changed and every safe house to be swept for bugs. It's an exhausting way to live, always bracing for the next potential betrayal or slip-up. Yet Jose thrives under the pressure. He's meticulous, methodical, and quick to adapt. The idea of making a mistake terrifies him, and that fear fuels the precision of his every move. Still, cracks are forming. The web of fake identities requires constant maintenance, and each change increases the chances of exposure. Associates grow tired of the endless precautions. Some begin to question whether Jose's obsession with security is slowing down the business. Jose hears the whispers, but he doesn't waver. He knows what's at stake. Late one night, as he sits alone in a safe house with only the hum of a ceiling fan for company, he reflects on the prison cell he once escaped. That memory keeps him sharp. He'll do whatever it takes to avoid ending up behind bars again. But even as he steels himself, he can't ignore the reality. The more identities he creates, the more visible he becomes to the agencies tracking him. Each fake passport, each burner phone, leaves a faint trace. And for investigators, all it takes is one good lead to unravel a ghost. Close calls begin to punctuate José Figueroa Agosto's otherwise seamless life, each one a reminder that no amount of planning can make him untouchable. The first comes during a routine drive through Santo Domingo. Jose, riding in a convoy of 2 SUVs, notices a pair of unmarked cars shadowing them at a distance. He instructs his driver to change routes 3 times, weaving through crowded streets and side roads. Only after 20 tense minutes do the tails disappear. He doesn't breathe a word about it at dinner that night, but the message is clear. The walls are inching closer. A few weeks later, another brush with danger rattles him. One of his warehouses, used to store shipments before distribution, is raided in Puerto Rico. Agents seize several hundred kilos of cocaine, and 2 low-level couriers are arrested. While the DEA celebrates the bust publicly, Jose knows it's a tiny fraction of his network. Still, the loss gnaws at him. Were the arrests random, or did someone inside tip off the authorities? A mainstream historical fact frames the fear. By the late 2000s, U.S. agencies had expanded joint operations with Caribbean law enforcement, coordinating cross-border raids with unprecedented efficiency. Many people still think Jose underestimated just how sophisticated the collaboration had become. So, what do you think? Could even a man this careful avoid a net designed specifically for him? His response is swift. He orders an immediate restructuring of his operations, shifting routes and reducing the size of each shipment to minimize risk. He tightens security around his lieutenants, limiting their access to sensitive information. Phones are changed yet again, safe houses abandoned, and new ones secured. But Jose knows the real danger lies in human error. Each courier, each intermediary, is a potential liability. One man under pressure could compromise everything. To remind his organization of the stakes, Jose holds a private meeting at a secluded villa. His presence is calm but heavy, like a storm on the horizon. He speaks softly about discipline, about the need to be smarter than the people chasing them. And then, in a move that leaves the room silent, he dismisses one longtime associate who had been careless with security protocols. The man is never seen again. The close calls weigh on him. Jose no longer enjoys the large public gatherings he once attended. Instead, he prefers quiet dinners with a small circle of trusted allies. Even at these gatherings, his eyes dart toward windows, exits, and the expressions of those around him. Late one evening, as he walks alone through the gardens of one of his hillside estates, the sounds of the city faint in the distance. Jose feels the full weight of the life he's built. The wealth, the power, the admiration. They mean little if one mistake can take it all away. Many people still think that these close calls were the beginning of the end, that they chipped away at his confidence and made him more vulnerable. And perhaps they're right. Jose feels it too, that sense of inevitability creeping at the edges of his thoughts, but he pushes it down, telling himself that he's survived worse. As he locks the villa's heavy iron gates behind him that night, he vows to be sharper, faster, and more invisible than ever before. Because in this world, complacency isn't just dangerous, it's fatal. By now, José Figueroa Agosto is no stranger to headlines. He's become a ghost story whispered in police stations and a near mythical figure in Caribbean media. Newspapers run tantalizing stories about his wealth, his women, and his connections, though none can confirm the full scope of his empire. He's the Narco Playboy now, a label that both amuses and frustrates him. The public fascination only grows as tabloids churn out articles filled with rumor and speculation. Photos of his luxury cars parked outside exclusive clubs appear on the front pages. Anonymous sources claim he owns entire neighborhoods in Santo Domingo. Even the DEA admits in press briefings that Jose is a priority target, though they offer no details about their investigation. A mainstream historical fact underscores the danger. Law enforcement agencies often use media exposure as a tool, leaking information to increase public pressure and flush out fugitives. Many people still think the media attention surrounding Jose's lifestyle was a deliberate tactic to disrupt his network. So, what do you think? Could the headlines alone have tightened the net? Jose understands that every story makes his life harder. He's already had to abandon multiple safe houses after neighbors grew suspicious, or journalists sniffed around. Associates become jittery when they see their boss's name splashed across TV screens. Even his girlfriends, once dazzled by the attention, begin to worry about being photographed or followed. One evening, as Jose watches a televised news report featuring blurry surveillance footage of what might be him stepping into a car, he feels a flash of anger. The anchors speculate about his movements, his aliases, even his relationships. He knows some of it is false, but the effect is real. The myth is now larger than the man. He retreats further into the shadows, cutting back on social appearances and public outings. But the damage is done. The myth has made him a celebrity in the worst possible sense. Children in Santo Domingo talk about him like a superhero, While law enforcement agencies portray him as a dangerous mastermind, inside his organization, morale begins to shift. Some lieutenants quietly wonder if José's growing fame makes them all more vulnerable. Rivals take advantage of the pressure, spreading rumors that he's lost his edge. The paranoia that has always simmered beneath the surface starts to boil. José doubles down on security. He installs more surveillance systems in his properties and increases the number of armed guards at every location. Associates are vetted more rigorously than ever, and even minor mistakes are punished harshly. Yet he knows these measures only buy him time. One humid night, as he sits alone on a balcony overlooking the city lights, the sounds of Santo Domingo muted by distance, José reflects on how quickly a name can become a target. He remembers his escape from prison years earlier, how invisible he felt then. Now, invisibility is a luxury he no longer has. Many people still think that the media's obsession with his life was the turning point, that the myth of the Narco Playboy eventually made him impossible to hide. And as José sips a glass of rum in the quiet night, he can't help but wonder if they're right. But for now, the city hums beneath him, alive and indifferent, and José tells himself he still has the upper hand. The myth of José Figueroa Agosto isn't just growing in the streets and the media, it's beginning to strain his own organization. The empire he built so carefully is starting to feel fragile, not because of external attacks, but because of fissures from within. Associates whisper behind closed doors, doubting his decisions and fearing that his notoriety makes everyone a bigger target. José senses it immediately. He has always been attuned to subtle shifts in loyalty, the way a man avoids eye contact or a lieutenant hesitates before answering a question. Small signs, but he knows they can signal disaster. To address the problem, he calls his core lieutenants together at a secluded villa far outside Santo Domingo. The gathering is tense. José, as always, is calm and deliberate. He reminds them of the success they've achieved, the wealth they've accumulated, and the network they've built that stretches from Colombia to the U.S. mainland. But he also makes it clear that loyalty is non-negotiable. He looks each man in the eye, one by one, making them feel the weight of his expectations. A mainstream historical fact about criminal enterprises provides context. Fractured inner circles have brought down countless syndicates, from the Italian mafia to Colombian cartels. Many people still think that José's ability to sense betrayal early is what kept him safe for so long. So, what do you think? Can a leader truly hold back that tide forever? Or is division inevitable? To reinforce unity, José begins reshuffling responsibilities. He rotates lieutenants between territories so that no one becomes too comfortable or too powerful. He even separates some long-standing partners who have grown too close, fearing that secret alliances could form behind his back. But the cracks aren't just about ambition. Some associates are nervous about the increasing pressure from law enforcement. DEA operations are growing more aggressive, and Puerto Rican authorities have launched renewed efforts to track him down. Even Dominican officials, long compromised by José's bribes, are beginning to face external pressure from international agencies. One evening, José receives disturbing news. A mid-level manager in his Puerto Rican operations has been arrested, and there are rumors he might cooperate with authorities. José acts swiftly, dispatching trusted enforcers to contain the problem. But the incident rattles him. He knows how quickly one betrayal can unravel years of work. He also can't ignore the strain on his personal life. Relationships that once seemed stable begin to erode under the weight of constant scrutiny. Girlfriends grow frustrated with the secrecy, The sudden moves from one safe house to another, the inability to live openly. Jose tries to compartmentalize, but he knows the walls are thinning. Late one night, he finds himself alone in the study of his hillside villa. The hum of the ceiling fan, the only sound in the room. He studies a map of his routes and safe houses, noting the weaknesses that have begun to appear. For the first time in years, he feels as though he's reacting instead of dictating. Many people still think that once a criminal empire begins to fracture internally, its days are numbered. Jose doesn't want to believe that. He tells himself that he can hold the pieces together, that he's too careful, too experienced to let it all slip away. But as he looks out the window at the twinkling lights of Santo Domingo, he can't ignore the feeling gnawing at the back of his mind. The enemy isn't just outside anymore. It's inside too. The growing pressure takes a more personal turn when romance intersects with betrayal. José Figueroa Agosto has always been careful with his relationships, but even he can't control every variable. Among his girlfriends, one stands out, Zobeida Felix Morel. Intelligent, ambitious, and seemingly loyal, she's been at his side through the rise of his empire. Jose trusts her more than most. Perhaps too much. Zobeida knows things others don't. The locations of safe houses, the names of key associates, even details of upcoming shipments. She's charmed by his power, but the weight of living in secrecy begins to erode her resolve. The constant moving, the scrutiny, the knowledge that one wrong step could mean death. It's exhausting. One night, after a heated argument with Jose about the risks they're taking, Zobeida storms out of a villa in Santo Domingo. He doesn't chase her. He's always believed that showing desperation only weakens his position. But as the door slams behind her, a seed of unease plants itself in his mind. A mainstream historical fact provides context. In organized crime history, romantic partners have often been the tipping point in major investigations, either willingly or unwillingly supplying information to law enforcement. Many people still think Jose underestimated the vulnerability that came with letting Zobeida get so close. So, what do you think? Could any criminal mastermind afford that kind of intimacy? Soon after the argument, Jose hears whispers that Zobeida has been speaking with people outside their circle. It could be nothing, a casual conversation twisted into gossip, or it could be the beginning of something much worse. He tries to contact her, but she's evasive. Then the worst happens. Zobeida is detained by Dominican authorities in a routine traffic stop. Inside her car, police find a staggering amount of cash, hundreds of thousands of dollars stuffed into suitcases. She's taken into custody, and the news spreads like wildfire. Jose knows immediately how dangerous this is. With that much cash in her possession, law enforcement will assume she's connected to him. And if they press her hard enough, she could give up information that unravels everything. He debates his options. Should he try to have her released through his network of corrupt officials? Should he cut ties and disappear, hoping she won't talk? Each path carries enormous risk. For the first time in a long while, Jose feels the walls closing in from a direction he didn't expect. Many people still think that Zobeida's arrest was the pivotal moment in the case against him. Some argue she willingly cooperated with authorities. Others believe she was simply trying to save herself. So, what do you think? Was her loyalty ever as strong as Jose believed? In the days following her detention, Jose withdraws further into the shadows. He switches safe houses twice in 1 week, burns through several phones, and halts multiple shipments until he can assess the damage. Late at night, sitting alone in a dimly lit safe house, he He replays every conversation he ever had with Sobeda. What had he told her? What could she reveal? The uncertainty gnaws at him. For the first time, he's not just worried about the DEA or rival cartels. He's worried about someone he once loved, and deep down, he knows that if she talks, his empire won't survive. The arrest of Sobeda Felix Morel sends shockwaves through José Figueroa Agosto's empire. It's as if a single thread in an elaborate tapestry has been pulled loose, threatening to unravel the whole thing. José, who has always prided himself on staying calm under pressure, feels a deep and unfamiliar tension gnawing at him. For years, he's controlled the flow of information like a master conductor. Now, with Sobeda in police custody, he's left to wonder how much she might reveal. He knows Dominican and U.S. authorities will lean on her, offering deals in exchange for details about his operations. If she cracks, they'll have the map they need to dismantle everything he's built. A mainstream historical fact gives weight to his fears. In countless organized crime cases, it's not rival gangsters, but insider testimony that delivers the final blow. Many people still think that Sobeda's arrest marked the moment when the DEA truly began closing in. So, what do you think? Was it betrayal, or simply the inevitable pressure of survival? José moves quickly. He suspends multiple shipments and cancels meetings with key associates, hoping to limit exposure. He shuffles the hierarchy, shifting responsibilities away from anyone who might be compromised. But each change carries its own risk. Every cancellation disrupts the smooth rhythm his organization relies on, and jittery associates begin to worry. Meanwhile, pressure from the DEA and Puerto Rican authorities intensifies. Joint task forces are formed, pooling intelligence from multiple agencies. Agents pore over bank records, phone logs, and surveillance footage. They know José is somewhere in the Dominican Republic, and they believe Sobeda may lead them straight to him. José's paranoia grows. He rotates safe houses every couple of nights and begins traveling only at odd hours, using decoy vehicles to throw off potential surveillance. Even his most trusted lieutenants see less of him now, their orders relayed through layers of intermediaries. But no matter how careful he is, he can't erase the growing unease in his network. Associates worry that Sobeda might have already given up critical information. Rivals sense weakness and begin testing boundaries, probing his routes and suppliers for opportunities. One humid evening, José convenes a secret meeting with his closest advisors at a villa hidden deep in the Dominican countryside. The atmosphere is grim. He lays out contingency plans, alternative routes, fallback safe houses, emergency stashes of cash and documents. He makes it clear that anyone who draws attention will be cut off immediately. Yet, even as he speaks, he feels the erosion of the control he once held so tightly. The walls are closing in, and everyone knows it. Many people still think that José could have salvaged his position if he'd fled immediately, disappearing into another country before the net tightened. But José can't bring himself to abandon the empire he's built. Instead, he tells himself he just needs to stay one step ahead, as he always has. Late that night, he sits in a darkened room, phone in hand, waiting for updates on Sobeda's status. Every vibration of the device makes his heart race. Has she talked? Is the DEA already moving in? For the first time in years, José feels a flicker of something dangerous. Doubt. By now, José Figueroa Agosto is living like a man under siege. The arrest of Sobeda Felix Morel has changed everything, tightening the noose around his neck with every passing day. His empire, once steady and methodical, is now forced into a defensive crouch. Shipments slow to a trickle. Safe houses are abandoned as quickly as they are secured. His once vast social circle contracts into a handful of trusted confidants, and even they sense that the walls are closing in. He no longer sleeps comfortably. When he does, it's in short bursts, fully dressed, his escape bag never more than an arm's reach away. Every knock at the door sets his nerves on edge. He is a ghost moving through Santo Domingo, careful never to stay in the same place 2 nights in a row. A mainstream historical fact underscores the danger. By 2009, Caribbean task forces supported by the DEA were executing coordinated raids on suspected traffickers with unprecedented efficiency. Intelligence sharing between agencies meant fugitives could no longer hide behind national borders. Many people still think José underestimated how swiftly this new level of cooperation could dismantle his empire. So, what do you think? Could anyone have outmaneuvered a net cast this wide? José's paranoia is justified. Authorities are indeed closing in. Agents have begun piecing together his movements through a combination of surveillance, informants, and financial records. Each raid, each confiscated shipment, brings them closer to understanding the full scope of his operation. Inside his organization, fear breeds mistakes. Some mid-level associates panic, making sloppy decisions. Others vanish altogether, either fleeing or switching sides. José reacts by tightening control, but his presence is now so rare that his directives lose some of their impact. Without him visibly at the helm, rumors swirl. One night, an associate slips up during a courier drop-off, leading authorities to one of José's stash houses. The raid uncovers weapons, ledgers, and cash, evidence that further fuels the investigation. José, furious but composed, immediately dismantles that branch of the operation, but each move leaves him more isolated. He no longer enjoys the comfort of trusted allies or predictable routines. Instead, he's constantly bouncing between safe houses, often with only a small security detail for company. His lavish lifestyle is gone, replaced by the harsh reality of a fugitive's existence. Many people still think this was the period when José should have fled the Caribbean entirely, disappearing into South America or Europe where his name carried less weight. Yet José remains convinced that leaving now would be an admission of defeat. He believes he can still regain control, rebuild, and outlast the storm. Late one night, he stands at the window of a cramped safe house, watching the rain lash against the city streets below. He remembers the villas, the parties, the confidence of those earlier years. Now, the sound of police sirens in the distance makes his pulse quicken. He turns away from the window and begins planning his next move. But deep down, José knows that every option left to him carries risks he can't fully control. The fugitive life strips away the veneer of power José Figueroa Agosto once wore so easily. His sleek cars, his glittering parties, his tailored suits, all have been left behind in exchange for nondescript safe houses and whispered phone calls. Each day feels like borrowed time. He knows the DEA and Dominican authorities are narrowing their focus, and his once unshakable network is fraying. José spends his nights plotting, weighing options that would have been unthinkable months earlier. Should he try to flee the Caribbean entirely? Slip into South America where old allies might shelter him? Or should he attempt to rebuild from the shadows, even as his empire collapses? The indecision eats at him, a foreign feeling for a man who once thrived on control. A mainstream historical fact provides context. Fugitives of Jose's stature rarely stay free indefinitely. According to U.S. Marshals Service data, over 90% of high-priority fugitives are apprehended within 5 years. Many people still think that Jose's decision to remain in the Dominican Republic was a fatal mistake. So, what do you think? Could he really have outrun an international manhunt forever? He moves constantly now, rotating between small apartments, country hideaways, and makeshift safe houses. Each location is sparsely furnished and stocked with just enough supplies to get by. He eats simple meals, avoids public spaces, and limits contact with even his closest associates. The Narco Playboy is gone. In his place is a shadow. The pressure weighs heavily on his security detail as well. They are loyal, but they're human, and Jose can see the strain in their faces. Weeks of sleepless nights, constant relocations, and the knowledge that one wrong move could bring the DEA crashing through the door. It wears on everyone. One night, Jose takes a calculated risk. He decides to stay in a luxury apartment in Santo Domingo, believing its anonymity in a high-rise complex might offer a measure of safety. From the balcony, he can see the city sprawling beneath him, the neon lights and distant traffic a reminder of the world he no longer controls. But even in this temporary sanctuary, the paranoia doesn't fade. He keeps the curtains drawn, the lights low, and the television on for background noise. Every knock at the door sets his pulse racing. He knows the DEA and Dominican authorities are actively working with informants now, trying to smoke him out. Meanwhile, his associates are dwindling. Some have been arrested, others have fled, and a few have quietly defected to save themselves. Jose understands the reality. The walls are closing in, and he can no longer rely on the loyalty that once sustained him. Many people still think that by this point, Jose had lost the empire entirely, that he was simply a fugitive clinging to the remnants of power. But Jose refuses to see it that way. He believes he can stage a comeback, rebuild what has been lost. Yet as he sits in the dim apartment, listening to the distant hum of the city, he can't escape the truth. He's living one step ahead of capture, and every step feels smaller than the last. And somewhere out there, law enforcement is watching, waiting, closing in. The night of José Figueroa. Agosto's capture begins like so many others, tense, quiet, and filled with the constant awareness that every sound might herald the end. For weeks, law enforcement agencies have been circling closer, working off tips from informants and evidence gathered from dismantled parts of his network. Jose knows the danger is real, but he tells himself he survived worse. He's staying in a modest apartment complex in Santo Domingo, a stark contrast to the villas and mansions he once called home. The anonymity is supposed to protect him, but on this particular night, surveillance teams are already in place. DEA agents and Dominican authorities have coordinated meticulously, narrowing their focus until only one address remains. A mainstream historical fact frames the intensity of the hunt. International fugitive task forces have one of the highest success rates of any law enforcement operations, thanks to shared intelligence and relentless tracking. Many people still think Jose underestimated how deeply they had penetrated his world. So, what do you think? Could he ever have stayed hidden from a net this tightly woven? Inside the apartment, Jose is restless. He paces, checks the locks, glances at the packed bag by the door. He knows his resources are dwindling. The associates he once trusted have either been arrested, disappeared, or turned against him. So Beta Felix Morel's arrest and rumored cooperation with authorities still haunts him. He can't shake the possibility that she may have given up crucial information. Just after nightfall, the operation begins. Agents surround the building quietly, moving with the kind of practiced precision José once admired in his own organization. He doesn't realize how close they are until it's too late. There's a knock at the door, soft, deliberate. When he doesn't answer, it's followed by the unmistakable sound of a battering ram. José has only seconds to decide. He reaches for his escape bag, but the door bursts open before he can act. Armed agents flood the room, shouting commands in Spanish and English. For a brief moment, time seems to slow. The man who once slipped out of a maximum security prison, who evaded capture for nearly a decade, stands frozen as the weight of inevitability crashes down. He doesn't fight. He knows there's no escape this time. José raises his hands and lets the agents close in. The cuffs are cold around his wrists, a jarring reminder of the prison cell he once escaped. Outside, flashing lights illuminate the quiet Santo Domingo street. Neighbors peer from windows as agents lead José to a waiting vehicle. Cameras click, capturing the moment the Narco Playboy is finally brought down. Many people still think that his calm demeanor during the arrest was a sign of resignation, that he knew the life he'd built was over. And perhaps they're right. As the SUV pulls away, José glances back at the building one last time, knowing he'll never walk its halls again. For the first time in years, the man who lived like a king is completely, utterly powerless. Life behind bars is a different universe from the one José Figueroa Agosto once ruled. The man who dined in the most exclusive restaurants of Santo Domingo and commanded a vast network now finds himself waking each day to the clanging of steel doors and the hum of fluorescent lights. Federal prison in the United States is not a place where comfort exists, and José knows better than to expect any favors. He's transferred into a high-security facility shortly after his extradition. The reality sets in immediately. This isn't Puerto Rico in the 1990s, where a young, brash version of himself once slipped out of custody. The security measures here are airtight, constant head counts, cameras on every corridor, guards who know exactly who he is. A mainstream historical fact drives the point home. The U.S. federal prison system holds some of the most dangerous criminals in the world, and escape attempts are nearly non-existent. Many people still think José must have understood instantly that there would be no second miracle. So, what do you think? Could a man like him ever accept total confinement? Or does the thought of freedom never stop gnawing? The adjustment isn't easy. José keeps to himself at first, wary of the complex politics inside the prison walls. He's a high-profile inmate, which makes him both respected and resented. Some prisoners want to ally with him, hoping his name will provide protection. Others view him as a challenge, a chance to make a statement. José quickly learns how to navigate this world. He maintains a calm, composed demeanor, avoiding unnecessary confrontations, but making it clear he won't be intimidated. He befriends a small group of inmates, exchanging favors and sharing what little comforts prison life allows. Books become his escape. Letters from family remind him of the life that's slipping further out of reach. Still, the weight of confinement presses on him. Days blend into weeks, weeks into months. The hum of the lights, the rigid routines, the lack of privacy, it all erodes the sense of control that once defined him. He finds himself thinking often about the empire he left behind, the routes and networks dismantled by law enforcement, the associates who are now either imprisoned or dead. Many people still think that prison is where Jose finally began to confront the full consequences of his life. Some believe he regretted the choices that led him here. Others say he remained defiant to the end. Jose rarely speaks on the subject, even in letters. When he does, his words are carefully chosen, revealing little about what he truly feels. One evening, as he sits alone in his cell, the faint buzz of a television echoing down the corridor, Jose stares at the concrete walls and reflects on the journey from Bayamon's cracked basketball courts to this unforgiving place. The fall from power is complete. He's not the Narco Playboy anymore. He's just another inmate with a number and a sentence that stretches far into the future. But even now, a part of him can't help but think about the world outside, about the contacts he once had, the money he hid away, and the possibilities that still flicker in the corners of his imagination. Because for men like José Figueroa Agosto, the idea of freedom is never entirely extinguished. The whispers begin, not long after José Figueroa Agosto settles into federal prison. Rumors swirl among inmates, and even within law enforcement circles, that he might be cooperating with authorities in exchange for a reduced sentence. It's a common speculation in high-profile cases, and for someone with the knowledge Jose possesses, the possibility is tantalizing. In truth, he's approached by investigators more than once. They want information on other traffickers, on lingering cartel connections, on corrupt officials who might still be active. Jose listens carefully, but never reveals his hand. Cooperation could bring benefits, but it could also paint a target on his back, both inside prison and beyond. A mainstream historical fact illustrates the stakes. Informants in organized crime cases often face extreme retaliation, even years after they've testified. Many people still think that Jose may have given up some information quietly, using intermediaries to secure a better outcome. So, what do you think? Would a man who once prided himself on control risk being labeled a snitch? The rumors are fueled further when a handful of investigations in Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic suddenly gain traction. High-level officials who were once untouchable are indicted. Some associates of Jose's former network are arrested in coordinated sweeps. The timing is suspicious, and many assume he's behind it. But if Jose is cooperating, he hides it well. He remains as composed as ever, going about his daily routine without revealing any sign of fear. He's careful about who he speaks to and what he says, knowing every conversation can be overheard or twisted. Inside prison, his reputation still carries weight. Younger inmates seek his approval, fascinated by the stories of the Narco Playboy. Older prisoners respect the discipline he maintains in a place designed to break men. Jose, for his part, plays the role carefully, never boasting, never revealing too much. Outside, the remnants of his empire continue to collapse. Routes he once controlled are taken over by rivals. The businesses and properties he used as fronts are seized by authorities. Family members struggle with the stigma of his name. One evening, Jose receives a letter from an old associate now facing charges of his own. The letter is angry, accusing him of betrayal, of feeding information to law enforcement. Jose reads it twice and then folds it neatly, slipping it back into its envelope. He doesn't respond. Many people still think that these rumors of cooperation will follow Jose for the rest of his life. Whether true or not, they shape how others see him. And in the criminal underworld, perception is everything. That night, as he lies on the thin mattress of his cell, staring up at the ceiling, Jose wonders how history will remember him. As a mastermind who built one of the Caribbean's most efficient drug networks, As the fugitive who outwitted authorities for nearly a decade? Or as a man who, in the end, traded secrets for survival? Whatever the truth, he keeps it to himself. The empire José Figueroa Agosto once commanded is now little more than a memory. One by one, his lieutenants are arrested. The smuggling routes he perfected, seized or dismantled by law enforcement. The Dominican and Puerto Rican authorities seize dozens of properties linked to him: villas, apartments, nightclubs, all auctioned off or turned into evidence of his staggering wealth. Federal prosecutors move quickly to strip his organization of any lingering assets. Bank accounts are frozen, shell companies shuttered. Cash hoards buried in hidden locations are discovered, though rumors persist that millions remain unaccounted for. The myth of José's hidden fortune begins to circulate, a tantalizing story that sparks countless fruitless searches. A mainstream historical fact provides context. In major drug cases, authorities often recover only a fraction of the profits generated by criminal enterprises. Many people still think José managed to hide vast sums before his arrest. So, what do you think? Did he outsmart the system one last time, or did the law take nearly everything? As the empire collapses, rival traffickers swoop in to fill the vacuum. New players emerge in the Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico, eager to carve out their share of the Caribbean corridor. José watches these developments from his cell, reading occasional news clippings that filter through the prison grapevine. It's a strange sensation, seeing the routes he once controlled so meticulously now in the hands of others. He remembers the countless hours spent planning shipments, securing contacts, ensuring loyalty. All of it is gone, absorbed into the chaotic churn of the underworld. Family members of those who died or suffered because of his network step forward publicly, calling for justice and closure. Communities devastated by drug violence demand accountability. José's name becomes shorthand for the kind of shadowy power that can warp entire societies. Many people still think that the fall of his empire brought peace, but the reality is more complicated. Other traffickers quickly adapt, and the flow of cocaine through the Caribbean continues much as before. The players change, but the game remains. For José, the collapse of his organization is both a humiliation and a strange relief. The constant pressure to maintain control is gone, replaced by the numb predictability of prison life. He no longer has to worry about double crosses, late shipments, or the next DEA raid. Yet he can't shake the sense of unfinished business. He wonders who's now profiting from the routes he built, whether the lieutenants who survived blame him for their downfall, and if the world will ever truly understand how much he shaped the Caribbean drug trade. Late one night, lying on his bunk, he thinks back to the cracked basketball courts of Bayamon where it all began. He marvels at how far he came and how far he's fallen, but he knows the story doesn't end here. Not really. His legacy, for better or worse, will ripple through the Caribbean for years to come, and perhaps, somewhere out there, the money he hid before the end is still waiting. Years pass, and José Figueroa Agosto fades from the headlines. He is no longer the Narco Playboy of the Caribbean, no longer the man who commanded fleets of speedboats and yachts, or who partied in the nightclubs of Santo Domingo like a monarch. Now, he is an inmate serving a sentence that stretches endlessly before him, a life measured in routines and the slow passage of time. Still, his name lingers in whispers. Journalists occasionally revisit his story, documenting how a young man from Bayamon rose to become one of the Caribbean's most powerful traffickers. Scholars debate the legacy of figures like him, arguing about whether he was a symptom of larger systemic failures or a singularly cunning manipulator of his circumstances, a mainstream historical fact highlights the complexity. Drug trafficking through the Caribbean has continued largely unabated, even after José's arrest. Routes shift, organizations change hands, and the flow of cocaine into the U.S. remains steady. Many people still think this reality proves how little impact his downfall had on the bigger picture. So, what do you think? Did taking down José Figueroa Agosto truly change anything? Or did it simply make room for someone else? In prison, José finds himself reflecting more often on the choices that brought him here. He thinks about the people he loved, the lives destroyed by his empire, and the intoxicating sense of power that once made him feel invincible. He knows the story others tell about him is a mixture of truth and legend, but he no longer tries to correct it. Occasionally, he writes letters, carefully worded notes to family members, to the children he rarely sees. He offers advice, laments missed birthdays, and sometimes hints at regrets. Whether those regrets are genuine or simply the polished words of a man who has learned how to shape his image is unclear. Many people still think José hides secrets, that he knows where millions of dollars in unrecovered assets are buried, or that he has knowledge that could topple powerful figures if he ever chose to speak. Authorities quietly suspect the same, but without concrete evidence, they can do nothing, and so José lives out his days behind bars. The Narco Playboy is a legend now, a cautionary tale of ambition, charisma, and hubris. The world outside moves on, younger traffickers carving out their own empires, some inspired by the myth of José Figueroa Agosto, others determined not to repeat his mistakes. Late at night, as the prison settles into silence, José lies awake on his narrow bunk. He thinks of the Caribbean breeze, the salt air, the neon glow of San Juan and Santo Domingo. He can almost hear the ocean waves lapping against the hulls of the boats he once commanded. The memories are vivid, but they fade quickly, replaced by the hum of fluorescent lights and the distant echo of a guard's footsteps. And somewhere in that quiet, he knows the story is finally done. And now, dear listener, as we drift toward the close of tonight's journey, I want you to let the weight of this story fall away from your shoulders. You've walked through the sun-baked streets of San Juan, stood in the shadowy safe houses of Santo Domingo, and felt the tension of a man who lived for years with the world closing in. But now, you can allow it all to soften. Take a slow breath, the kind that fills your lungs completely, and hold it for just a moment. Then exhale gently, letting any lingering stress slip away with the air. Picture yourself far from the noise and danger we've explored, standing on a quiet stretch of Caribbean shoreline. The sand beneath your feet is warm and soft, the ocean whispering gently as the waves roll in and out, over and over, like a lullaby meant just for you. Above you, a soft breeze rustles through the palms, cool against your skin. The stars are bright and steady, scattered across a sky so vast it makes everything else seem small. You're safe here. No more running, no more hiding. Just the steady rhythm of the world moving at its own unhurried pace. Let your shoulders drop. Let your jaw unclench. Allow the sound of my voice to fade into the background as your own breathing becomes the only thing you notice. You've traveled far tonight, and now it's time to rest. There's nothing left for you to do. No decisions to make. No tension to hold. Just you, the soft hum of the night, and the comfort of knowing you are exactly where you need to be. Sweet dreams, my friend.